I'm trapped in a world of lies, where my lover has become a stranger, and my name has been taken by another girl. Chapter 33, Arenal Forest. Forest, POV. My mum kept telling me to eat, to drink, to sleep, but I couldn't. Not while she wasn't beside me. I had searched the woods for days, not stopping for a break or rest. I only stopped searching for her when I physically collapsed from fatigue. My parents, Ash and Sky and their parents had been searching as much as they could, looking for her. We had to find her. Without her, I was a mess. I didn't look after myself. I haven't had a shower in like a week. I can't track time. Every second stretches on for hours because she isn't here with me. I need her. She's the air I breathe, the ground I stand on, the water I drink. She is my rock, always there for me to lean on when I need her. I'm strong because she's mine, and she needs me to be. I would learn to live in space or deep under the sea if she needed me to. But now she's lost, and I don't know where she is. I turned up to school, hoping to find Tyder or Tasha, hoping I could kidnap them in return, make them tell me where she is. But of course they aren't that stupid. They were absent. I lay on the sofa. My mum had made me take a nap. She said if I didn't take a nap she would make me. She wouldn't actually force me. She isn't like that. But the worry on her face as she looked at me, the way her voice shook as she spoke to me, the way her smile looked forced and never reached her eyes as she tried to joke. She was worried about me. She didn't need the stress of me not looking after myself on top of Arya being missing. She loved Arya like a daughter. I know she's worried about her. I know they all are. I don't think my dad or Ash and his and Sky's dads have slept much more than me. They all make sure their mate get enough sleep. But I know actually they all just sneak into my dad's office and look over the map while their mates search the woods. It had been a stressful few weeks for everyone. I wasn't helping anything by not looking after myself. I know Arya would want me to look after myself, but I just couldn't. I refused to go into my room. Her scent was all over that room and I would probably lose the slight control I had. When I did sleep, I either slept at Ash or Sky's houses, or on the sofa. Even being in my own house is painful. She lived here for months. The whole house smelled of her. The sofa where we watched movies. The kitchen where we had so many meals together as a family. The hallway she walked every day. It was all a painful reminder that she wasn't here with me. After my nap, I did feel slightly better. Slightly more refreshed. But not much. I went to my dad's office to catch up on what I'd missed. We had decided she must be close by. I could feel her through the bond that we shouldn't have yet. The bond that only appeared when she was in danger. She was confused. Confused and conflicted. I don't know why. And that killed me. If I didn't know where she was, if I didn't know why she was confused, how was I supposed to make it right? We have searched all our territory. My dad summed up. We guess she wouldn't be on our land. But better check than later find out she's been on our land, right below our noses, the whole time. Next we have permission from the Alpha Jack to search the no man's land next. Alpha Jack, the alpha of the territory next to us, was a good friend of my dad's. We needed permission to look though. Going into no man's land without permission from other alphas, even if you are an alpha yourself, is seen as an act of war. I nodded. I wasn't fully listening. I was busy looking over the map, looking for places he could have hidden her on no man's land. There were a few places we could try. Too many. It would take us days to fully search the whole area. Time we didn't have. Where she most likely to be. Not looking up from the map. I needed to find her. We really don't know. She could be anywhere. No place is looking more or less promising. I nodded at my dad's words. He was right, but I wished we had one definite location. I chose a random location on the map. I'll search here. My mum smiled at me reassuringly, silently promising me we would find her before it was too late. I ran outside, shifting at the edge of the woods and started running towards the caves. I didn't think they were hiding there, but I needed to do something. My wolf relished the freedom, The wind did his fur. I gave him more control. He needed this moment. He needed to forget Arya and just run off all his problem. We both did. We ran and ran and ran. Off the territory and beyond. I had never been far off our land before. It's dangerous to stray too far from home. But in this moment, I couldn't bring myself to care. I stopped for a break, panting from my sprint. My wolf felt better, calmer, although he still wanted his mate back. I was so caught up in my thoughts I didn't recognize the scent till it was almost on top of me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. She was exactly the same as when I last saw her. She didn't seem to be too injured from her brother. Her scent calmed my wolf instantly, in the way only a mate could. I looked over and saw her wolf staring at me. She was really here. I was so happy my wolf started to prance like a happy puppy. But she was just standing still, staring at me. She nudged me with her head, but still looked sad. If it was possible, she looked even sadder. Suddenly, and without any warning, she turned tail and ran. She ran away from me, her own mate. I threw myself forward, running after her, through the woods, into a new territory and beyond. Still she didn't stop. I couldn't see her anymore. I was following her scent, until her scent just stopped. I had followed her to a random point of the wood. It didn't seem particularly special, but her scent just stopped. I looked around for a bit longer, but she was gone, completely gone. My wolf howled out in defeat as I ran back. We had found her, but she ran from us. I got back home and just wanted to curl up and die. I trudged through my house, heading for my room before remembering that would just be more painful and heading for the sofa. I threw myself on the sofa before realizing I wasn't alone. You look like shit, Ash said from across the room. I just looked up and stared at him while Sky slapped him. What was that for? He asked with a pout. You were being rude, Sky said. Also, I wanted to. Watching their interaction made my wolf yearn for Arya even more. Why did she run from me? No, seriously, dude. You look worse than you did an hour ago. And that's saying something, Ash said bluntly. I sighed before answering. I found Arya. They both gasped, but I cut them off before they could say anything. She ran from me. It wasn't Arya. She didn't recognize me. Whatever they have done to her, they've changed her already. Messed with her head or whatever. It's too late. Ash just sat there, looking shocked. For once he was lost for words. Sky came over to me. Putting her hand on my shoulder, she looked me in the eyes. Don't give up on her. She's your mate. If you don't believe in her, what chance does she have? I just sighed. I should probably go tell my dad. Sky looked disappointed with me but let me get past, going over to the sofa where Ash was sitting. After I told my parents what had happened, they stayed silent for a minute before answering. If he has a witch, the witch may have cloaked their location so only certain people can get through. My dad said. I agreed it was a strong possibility, but why did she run from me? Not meeting their eyes. I didn't want pity. I wanted answers. I don't know. We'll look into it. My mum promised. My dad nodded in agreement. They were sure we could still get our Arya back, but I thought she was too far gone. I'm going out. I announced suddenly, looking to my dad to see if I was needed here. My dad gave me a short nod, and I started to walk out the door. Keyword started. I hadn't got more than a few steps away from my dad's office when an immeasurable amount of pain washed over me from the link with Arya that still shouldn't exist. The torment was so great it caused me to fall to the floor, screaming in agony. My head was pounding with my heartbeat, and pain pierced through me like a needle through fabric. Into my nerves. Enthusiasm. In my blood. Everywhere. Ash came running up the stairs. Forrest, what's he asked? Concern written all over his face. My parents were frantically trying to figure out what was wrong with me. He was cut off by a scream as my back arched off the floor. I felt as if my insides were burning. My throat was closing, cutting off my oxygen. A stream of foreign emotions started clouding my mind. My mind knew the truth, that my heart wouldn't believe it, that this amount of pain wasn't my own. But it was the truth. I was feeling her. Every emotion I was feeling was hers. Every tear that was rolling down my cheeks was hers. Every ounce of pain I was feeling was hers. I grimaced as another wave of pain shot through me like a bullet. I managed to growl out, causing everyone around me to gasp. I knew what they were all thinking. If I was feeling pain at that intensity, and we hadn't fully bonded, how much pain must she be in? After a few minutes I managed to block the bond slightly. I didn't want to, but it was the only way to decrease the pain, even slightly. I was no help to Arya if I was withering on the floor in pain, but I still felt like I was betraying her. If I couldn't survive the slightly muted pain, what hell must she be going through? Chapter 34, Alpha Maxim Forest's POV. The pain didn't go away. All day, it was still there, in the back of my mind. It was like an unwavering stream. What are they doing to her? I yelled out when that pain got to bed. I was sitting in the living room, trying to distract myself from Arya. It wasn't working. I looked over to my parents. What can we do? What can I do? I asked desperately. I needed to do something. Anything. To get my mind off the pain. I don't know. My dad said. He was trying to stay on, but desperation was starting to leak through. I don't know how they managed to get a witch to work with them, or even why a witch would work with them. We can't stop them unless we could find the witch's motivation for helping. There was nothing we could do. No leads to follow. My mate was in pain and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I lay down on the sofa with a cushion over my head, trying to block out everything, trying to mind link Arya to my agent extraordinaire, Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Arya, can you hear me? I got no reply. I had been trying to reach her since she went missing, but they must be blocking her mind link. She was always slightly out of reach. To my agent extraordinaire, Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I tried calling out for my wolf, but he wouldn't help me. He hadn't spoken to me since Arya went missing. He just howled. He howled for his mate. He wanted her back, but felt helpless. We couldn't find her. She ran from us. She was in pain. I heard the door open and someone come rushing in. Alpha Maxim is here. He wants to talk to Forest. Ash yelled out, before turning and running for the door with my parents and me in tow. To our agent extraordinaire, Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My dad questioned, turning to full alpha mode. I looked over at Ash. He looked really worried. Not just, one of the most feared alphas has traveled halfway across the world to talk to you. Worried. Something more. Something else. What's wrong, Ash? He started to answer, but I cut him off. And don't say, Alpha Maxim's here. There's something more than that. Ash looked down before answering. Alpha Maxim. He says he knows who your mate is. Who Arya really is. He says he can help. I just stared at him, not believing what he was saying. Where is he? If Alpha Maxim knew who my mate was, I didn't care why he came from America to tell me. I didn't care he might have another motive. I just wanted to know my mate. My dad held up his hand before Ash answered. Wait, can we trust him? Why would he come all the way from America to help one person? I growled lowly at him. My wolf just wanted his mate. I'm not saying we caught to him. I'm saying just go carefully. I nodded in agreement and nodded for Ash to answer. He's at the pack house. In your office, he said, addressing my dad. We all jumped to the car. Mum driving to the pack house. I really hope this alpha isn't just yanking our strings, she muttered under her breath. My dad placed his hand on her leg reassuringly. Why would he come all the way from America just to trick us? She shrugged. Sky was waiting in the doorway of the pack house for us. He's upstairs. Walking over to Ash before following us up the stairs. My father entered the office and went round his desk, not sitting in the presence of another alpha. We all joined him on his side. Alpha Maxim, you say you know who my son's mate is. Straight to the point. Yes, I heard some disturbing news from some other alphas. Just speculation, but I looked some more into it and found some interesting, to say the least. Information. What did you find? My dad asked, looking at Alpha Maxim's skeptical eye. He didn't believe he could have had anything from America. Alpha Maxim smiled to me sadly. It all started about a month ago. I got a letter in the post from England. He turned to look at my father. I thought it was from you at first, being the only Alpha important enough to know my address. But it wasn't. I wish I hadn't opened it now. I looked around and wasn't surprised to see everyone's attention fixed on Alpha Maxim. We all wanted to know who the letter was from. I wanted to know what this all had to do with my Arya. The letter was very strange. It was typed on a computer and never addressed me by name. I guess it was sent out in mass. It told of a wolf. A despicable wolf. A hybrid. A terrible mix of two species who should have never met. The writer was asking for help. He wanted to destroy this freak of nature. He said he was saving us all. He said she would be our undoing, and if we joined him we would be saviors. He set a date and a time. Said to be there if we cared about the safety of our packs. He took a deep breath before continuing. I, of course, went along with it. I would do anything to save my pack. Anything. Anything but what he asked. At 2 o'clock exactly we all gathered where he told us to be. Waiting. He stood in front of us. On top of a stage. He addressed us like a king addressing his subject. He addressed us like a general addressing his soldiers. He had the crowd enraptured. We were spellbound. Trapped like a fly in a spider's web. He looked over to me. True sorrow in his eyes. Sorrow and regret. He told us his name was Elias. His son was called Tyler. His daughter was a hybrid. He told us about a hybrid. How she was a danger to our kind. She was unstable. A cold-blooded killer who needed to be stopped. Everyone cheered. When he showed her a picture of the hybrid, everyone stopped. The picture showed a girl. No longer a child. But not quite an adult. She was laughing at someone. Looking away from the camera. She looked happy. She looked free. She looked stable. I knew this woman in the picture wasn't dangerous. I had met her before. Last time I came over to your pack. It was Arya. I heard a gasp from around the room, but I couldn't focus on that. My mind was too fixated trying to figure out how he had met Arya before. She was never a part of our pack. We had never met her before. My mum was the one who spoke up. How did you meet her? She was never a part of this pack. She didn't know she was a wolf until a few months ago. Alpha Maxim shook his head before answering. You're right. She was never part of this pack. But she has been a wolf for longer than she realized. I did meet her once. When she was 7. She told me her story. And I looked into it. All those years. I looked into it. Pieced together her history. The man who called her dangerous gave me the final piece of the puzzle. The puzzle of her life that not even she truly knows about. As soon as I figured out what they were planning with her, I tried to call you, but I couldn't get through. By the time I managed, one of your pack members said you were too busy to talk. Your son's mate had gone missing. I was too late. I was on the edge of my seat. I had tried to find out about Arya's past but could never figure out how she ended up a werewolf when her dad was so obviously human. Alpha Maxim continued his story. When I met her, I told her how to shift back. I lent her my shirt and she told me why she was all alone, running in the woods. Her dad was angry with her. She didn't know why. The week before she had gone through a 4 shift as her dad beat her. But after she shifted, the abuse just got worse. Her dad hated it when she shifted. And I suppose in the years that followed he managed to make her suppress her wolf. To the extent that she forgot about her. She told me she had been in town with her mum when suddenly a man had come up to her. Her mum went off with the man and left her all alone in town. Within a week her mum left with the man and never came back. She had no idea why. Only that she was gone and her dad blamed her. Over the years, with so much abuse. She did too. When he looked up he had tears in his eyes. I tried to help her, but she said she had to stay. She said she still loved her family regardless. She wouldn't tell me why. I decided to find out as much as I could about her. I needed to help the poor little girl in the woods, so woke she had run off back home. I looked into her past as much as possible. For almost a month I obsessively looked through every book I could, until I finally found what happened. How she ended up like she did. Again he stopped. I was really tired of his repeated stopping and starting. What is it? All this talk of Arya. How close she was to me all this time. I could have saved her so long ago. Maybe then Elias wouldn't have her. Maybe then she would be safe. Her mum was a werewolf. She fell in love with a human. A hunter. She was told he was dangerous. She thought he could change. She was correct. For a while he was a loving husband. He loved her and loved their 2 children. But that all changed that fateful day, when Arya was in town with her mum. That day her mum met her true mate. She thought she loved her husband, but those feelings were eclipsed by the love she felt for her mate. So she left. She knew Arya was a werewolf. She knew Tyra was all human. She knew Elias would hate werewolves if she left, and probably take it out on Arya if she left her there. But she wanted a fresh start with her new mate. She knew what she was doing. She knew what fate awaited her 6-year-old daughter. But she didn't care. I managed to get in touch with her once. She didn't even remember Arya's name. She didn't want anything to do with her. However much I hated what Elias and Tyler were saying, I knew I had to keep listening to their plan. So I kept listening. Their plan was to neutralize her. They said she was a hunter werewolf. She wasn't stable and therefore would hunt down hunters and werewolfess alike, just for the thrill of the chase and the fun of the kill. They said they already had a plan to capture her, and would be doing so very soon. They just needed a new mate for her. She was mated, but her mate let her free rein, and that would destroy the werewolf population. They needed someone who could destroy her, break her, stop her. Beta Simon from the Cold Wind Pack stepped forward. I shook with anger at the name. The Cold Wind Pack were despicable. They didn't care about anyone and believed that any unmarked female was fair game. They think women are below them and disrespected their mates by getting with females that don't, and never will, belong to them. He had no right to go anywhere near my mate. He said he would break her, so long as he got something in return. Elias told him he could have her. All of her, if he broke her. Simon agreed. I felt my wolf push forward, taking control before I even registered what he wanted. He was beyond angry. He wanted blood. Where a man had stood just moments before, there now stood a wolf. An extremely angry wolf. My dad stepped forward, ignoring my wolf when he growled at him. I wrestled for control. We were no use to our mate if we kept losing control. My father used his alpha power to push my wolf down, helping me get control back. He then threw some clothes at me, which I put on before we continued our discussion. How were they planning to break her? My dad asked, still pushing his alpha powers into me to stop my wolf from taking over. The same way they did when she was young. Arya's POV, they told me to keep quiet. They told me Forrest wasn't real. They told me I was Simon's mate, and therefore he owned me. They told me they were beating me for my own good. But I couldn't believe them. Through every punch, every kick, every hateful word, I remembered Forrest. He kept me safe. He loved me. He was my mate. Then why isn't he here? I no longer had my wolf. I was too weak to hurt. Instead I had nagging doubt. She was always there, whispering in my mind, feeding me lies all hour of the day. Simon is your mate. He only hurts you because he loves you. She would whisper as he beat me. It's your own fault. Should have held your tongue. She hissed as my dad punched me for talking back to him. They don't exist. She'd laugh as I begged to Layla, the moon goddess, if you forgot to save me, to take me home to my mate, to Forrest and my family. She would taunt me, all day every day. You have been a bad girl. If you sit still, keep your mouth shut, forget about Forrest, your mate won't have to beat you. If you sit still, look pretty, you can have a normal life. You are a trophy. You would do well to remember that terror. I couldn't fall for her tricks. I knew what was real and what wasn't. I wouldn't fall for her lies. but the nagging doubt wouldn't shut up. And slowly I began to believe it. Chapter 35, The Hunt. Forrest's POV. My wolf didn't believe me when I said we couldn't just go and get our mate back. He didn't understand we couldn't find her. We had tried. Weeks had passed. It was almost 2 months since Arya had gone missing. How could anyone stay strong through all that? Alpha Maxim hadn't left. He said he would help us find Arya. He seemed so sure we would find her, and she would be the Arya who got kidnapped. I wasn't so sure. I knew the pain I felt. The pain that used to fill my veins at all times of the day. My pain that was just a muted version of her pain. I can't believe anyone, not even the strongest of souls, could go through so much pain, so much suffering, and get out the other side sane. But then one day the pain had stopped. And that, for some reason, the pain had stopped. That could mean any of 3 things. 1, they had seen the error of their ways and had decided to let her go. Not likely. 2, she was dead. Not likely. Mate Bond or my wolf would know if she died, and I would find out pretty soon after. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She had given up. Like last time they had beaten the fight out of her. She was lost to me. Not acceptable. Don't give up on her. Not yet, Sky said, reading my thought, or my facial expressions. If you give up on her, what chance does she have? You have to keep believing. In Arya, in her strength, and in your love. I nodded distractedly. Truth be told, I wasn't sure if our love was strong enough to counteract the pain. Come on, said Ash, standing up dramatically. I need to get out of the house. Why don't we go into town? My wolf surged forward, growling at him. My mate has been kidnapped, cast off to another man. And you want me to go into town? I growled at him, his head automatically bowing, submitting from the power I was throwing round the room. Forest enough, my dart said sternly. Throwing your powers around will not get her back. Ash is right. You need to leave the house. I will keep looking for Arya and call if we get any leads, but you need to go for a bit. Either into town or into the woods. Think for a bit and cool off. I nodded. I didn't know what else to do. I ran upstairs to grab my coat before grabbing the car keys off the counter. I jumped into the car and started to back out of the driveway, slamming on my brakes as Ash suddenly appeared in front of me. Before I could react, he hopped into the passenger side. I'm not letting you go alone. Who knows what mischief you could get yourself into? I just nodded before speeding off. I was going way above the speed limit, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I was driving nowhere. We had gone round the same roundabout for a few minutes now, which was definitely illegal, but I had nowhere to go. Not without Arya. Who knew I would become so dependent on my mate? If someone had told me this time last year I would be miserable because I wanted a woman, I would have laughed. And yet here I am. I sighed again before Ash broke the silence. Come on, man. It'll all work out. Fate wouldn't put you together just to rip you apart again. I just grunted in response. From what I had seen, fate didn't seem to be on my side. I pulled into a car park, parking the car before opening my door and dragging myself out. Come on then. We might as well do something useful with our time. Walking towards the Tesco in front of me, I grabbed the shopping list on the way out. I explained as I say, Ash looking at me as if I was mad. I shrugged before grabbing a shopping trolley and heading down the aisles, grabbing the things on the list as I passed. After only 5 minutes, Ash was already dragging his feet, whining like a 3-year-old. Why are we doing this anyway? What's the point? I turned to glare at him. We are doing this because Winter needs to waste time. She has no idea where she's taking this story, so we are shopping while she thinks. He looked at me as if I were mad. So if she doesn't get inspiration soon, we could be stuck shopping all chapter. Ash screamed, causing some confused shoppers turn and look at us as if we should be in a mental asylum. Hey, Define. I countered. I'm sure she's find inspiration soon. Ash opened his mouth to say something but was cut off by a man at the end of the aisle, smirking. Fancy seeing you here. Just as well I did, I suppose. I have a letter for you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. An invitation, Elias said, taunting us, waving the invitation in front of us before tossing it down at my feet and strolling off. You know, said Ash, staring at Elias' residing figure. I really wish Winter hadn't found any inspiration. I nodded in agreement before grabbing the envelope off the floor. We silently walked out to the car and I drove back home, hoping with all my might what I thought would be in the envelope wouldn't. I got back home in record time, throwing my car into park and sprinting up the stairs to my dad's office. I threw my envelope onto his desk and he just stared at me. What's this? Looking at it warily, my mum and Sky crowded round, trying to figure out what was in the envelope. Elias came. He gave me this envelope, said it was an invitation. My dad growled at the mention of Elias, then at my words carefully opened the envelope, holding it away from him as if he was going to attack it. Instead, 2 small pieces of paper fell out. An invitation. I reached forward, grabbing the paper off the table and started to read. You are cordially invited to a hunt in honor of my daughter and her new mate. I couldn't read any more and threw it on the table. My mum grabbed it and picked up where I left off. This is like no other hunt you have ever been on, nor will it end the way any other hunt has. I know you may not approve of her mating, and since you were an important part of her life for the last few months, I will give you one chance. The hunt is a search for our location. If you find us, you can have my daughter as a prize. We will hand her over and leave her alone. As I'm feeling nice, I'll give you a clue. Sky grabbed the other sheet of paper. You can find us in the city, in the middle of the woods. The defining silence of the man-made trees fill the air with clashing melodies. If you look for us, you won't find us. To see past, you need to see in the darkness and close your eyes to the light. The home to many, and yet to none. The home of the greatest sins and the greatest redemption. Find her before the silent bells will ring out to face defeat. What on earth does that mean? It makes no sense. Well, that was helpful, Ash said sarcastically. I will give you 3 weeks to find us. I would advise you not to be late. My mum read before placing the paper back on the table. Well, my dad said, pulling out his chair, we have some work to do. Chapter 36, Survival and Death Terrors. POV. It hurt. Everything hurt. Every day they would beat me, telling me to be good, sit still, stay quiet. My mind screamed for me to comply. My heart begged for me to never give up. I was lost. What do you do when your whole survival depends on 2 things that can never meet? If I don't give in, they'll kill me. But if I do give in, I would never see Forrest again. I couldn't live with that. The only way to survive is to give up. And also not to give up. You should just give in. The voice in my head whispered. They wouldn't hurt you. They snickered. Much. I was used to the voice. Every day. All day. The voice whispered in my mind, telling me to give up. You'll never win. They stated it as if it was a fact. Not a matter of if. Just when. I didn't believe that. I couldn't believe that. Forrest will save me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The voice yelled. Doesn't exist. You are denying yourself from your mate. Why? To make a point. Give me one reason why. The argument went on. Every day. It was exhausting. The door crashed open, flying into the wall with a loud bang. But I didn't flinch. Are you going to give up yet? My dad sneered from the doorway. I smiled back, laughing maniacally. Nope. The smirk was wiped right off my dad's face and replaced with the biggest frown I had ever seen. Come on, Terrell. Frowning down at where I was chained to the wall. I was sick. I was tired. I was weak. But I wouldn't give up. Not that easily. My name is Arya. Staring at him. It will always be Arya. Whatever you try, whatever you do, my name will always be Arya. He just shrugged. It doesn't matter what your name is. Until you comply, you will stay here. You kicked me, and you will never escape. I knew I wasn't going to escape. I had barely enough energy to move. He kicked me in the ribs, smiling as they clicked, snapped like twigs. He punched me. Once, twice, again and again. I felt my consciousness slip away from me and didn't fight to stay awake. There was no point. Resistance is futile and complying is the only way to survive. And also the way to die. I drifted in and out of consciousness for a few more hours before I was started awake by a jug of water being flung on me. I looked up to see Tyler grinning down at me. "Hello, bitch," he laughed. "I do hope the accommodations are meeting your requirements." I mustered up all my energy. "Not really." I joined in, laughing. "You really need some better staff." I had to show him he didn't affect me. The smirk was wiped off his face at my laughter, at my comeback. He thought I was strong. I suppose all you need to be strong is to make people think you are. "Listen here, bitch. It should have been me. It should have been me." He was screaming now, screaming and beating me. Punch, hit, kick, should, punch, have. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Then, punch me. He was screaming, hysterical. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I wanted to be the wolf. All my childhood my mum told me about werewolves. About having my own wolf. My own mate. But then I didn't get the gene. And you did. It should have been me finding my mate. Falling in love. He turned to me, stopping mid-rant. His face red and his eyes wild. "You stole it from me. If I can't have a happy ever after, neither can you." He grabbed me by my hair, pulling me up as high as my chains would let me before throwing me into the wall. "It's all your fault. You took her away from me." I felt my head connect with the wall. I felt the pain explode as my head rebounded off the wall. I didn't feel the blood trickling down my neck. I had slipped away. I woke again. I had been out for days and I was still feeling groggy. I slowly pulled myself into a sitting position, my muscles shaking, protesting as they attempted to try to take my body weight. I felt weak. The world span like a Ferris wheel and colors burst behind my eyes. My own private fireworks show. I hadn't had any food or water in days. I was exhausted, dehydrated, lost. I couldn't see properly. I couldn't hear properly. I couldn't think properly. All I felt was pain. All I heard was fuzzy, distorted. Colors seemed too bright, too pigmented. I couldn't make sense of my thoughts. Simon walked in, his face neutral. "You are mine, terror. My wolf wants a mate. He wants you. I will never be yours." I hissed at him, barely getting the words out before his hand connected with my face, sending my head snapping back. "Shut up." He glared at me, his eyes glinting with darkness and madness. "You will be mine." I took a good look at him. He looked mad. His eyes twitched. His hands shook. His laugh sounded deranged in his smile. His smile was pure evil. "Shut up, shut up, shut up." He laughed, walking on his heels. "You are my mate. You are mine." I shook my head. "I have my own mate. I am not yours. I will never be yours." He moved quicker than my eyes could track. Across the room. One moment he was standing by the door. The next he was holding me by the neck against the wall, cutting off my air, strangling me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Black spots appeared in the corners of my vision, growing, spreading, leaking, until my whole vision was consumed with black. "Never," Simon whispered, sounding deadly, his voice cutting through me like a knife. "Talk back to me. I have been here too long. I have been on my own too long. I have been trapped too long." My thoughts had started mingling with the voice in my head. I couldn't tell the right from the wrong, the fact from the fiction. I lay my head on my arm, silently crying for the times when life was better. Life was simpler. Life was happier. With tears in my eyes I thought back to Forrest. The way he held me when he cried. The way he kissed me softly. The way he cared for me. He loved me. I missed him. Some crumpled copy of a smile appeared on my face. I missed him so much. I was his. He was mine. We belonged to each other. We belonged with each other. And without him I would die. I stayed there, my head in my arms, tears trickling down my face, for what felt like hours, crying for my mate, my family, my life. I heard someone enter the room. "Peter," Simon said, his voice laced with fake comfort. "Peter, it's okay. It's okay." In that moment he sounded so much like Forrest. He sounded like comfort, like my old life. I clung to that. I ignored the repulsion running through me and didn't fight back when he picked me up, placing me on his lap. He was running his hand through my hair, whispering empty words in my ear, empty words I needed to hear. I didn't like Simon. In fact, I hated him. I knew this was the exact same man who kidnapped me, the exact same man who drugged me, the exact same man who tried to strangle me earlier. But I didn't pull away, because I was sad. I was tired. I was lonely. And he was comforting me. My first mistake. Chapter 37. The second mistake Forrest B.O.V. I could feel her slipping away. Every tick of the clock was just another reminder that another second had slipped by and we were no closer to solving the puzzle. Maybe the city means this city, Ash said. Maybe the whole thing is literal. Yes, Ash. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sarcasm thick in my voice, because every tree around here is man-made, that clash in melody and are surrounded by a defining silence. My mum sighed in annoyance. This whole riddle is an oxymoron. It makes no sense because it's not supposed to. They are making it hard for us to succeed. I nodded. What do we do? I whispered. She's slipping away. I tapped my head. I can feel her slipping away. And I can't do anything. My mum pulled me into a hug. We'll find her. You can't have her. She's ours. I nodded in agreement before turning back to the riddle. We had to solve it. Tara's POV. Tara, my dad sang, coming into the cell. Tara, Tara, Tara. He was laughing, cracking himself up. It wasn't a pretty sound. It sounded like nails on a calcboard. What? I growled out, trying hard not to cough or wince at my scratchy voice. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of how much his torture had done to me. Well, you see, Tara. A smirk on his face as his eyes danced with fire. I had a great idea of what to do today. It's going to be so much fun. His words did nothing to assure me, probably because of the evil tone they were said in, or the way he has never done anything nice for me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you want to know what I'm going to do today? I shook my head, but he either didn't see or didn't care. I'm going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. Between one word and the next he grabbed my hair, pulling me into the air and threw me down, making my wrist snap as I landed on it awkwardly. He grabbed 2 chairs from across the room and threw me into one of them, chaining me to it so I couldn't escape. He then sat across from me, as if we really were in school. Just 2 friends having a conversation rather than a mad lunatic who kidnapped his daughter just to beat her and sell her off to a random man for fun. Now, my dad said, smiling, first lesson is science. As he said that Tyler came in, carrying a tray of medical instruments. You know, Tara, my dad said, smirking at me. I've always loved the working of the human body, the way the muscles twitch or the tendons snap. But your brother, your poor brother, has never gotten to see the human anatomy. So today, we are going to show him. Then, as if an afterthought, he added, if you move less, it'll hurt less. He grabbed the scalpel, bringing it towards my arm. His mouth was moving, but I couldn't make out the words. I was transfixed on the instrument, getting closer to my arm. We all watched my blood drip down my arm, but all for different reasons. I was watching in horror, my life-giving blood dripping down to become a worthless puddle on the floor, whereas my brother and dad, they were watching in sick fascination, watching the way the blood twisted and twirled as it glided down my arm. They didn't care if they bled me dry. They just thought it was fun. They cut more and more. I screamed out as the blood gushed down my arms, my legs, my chest. They didn't care. I welcomed the darkness like an old friend, opening my arms wide to be taken into its dark embrace. There was no pain. There were no sounds. There was no life or death. This was a grey area, lost in between. Before forest, the darkness was always my home, my safety, the one I would go to when it got too much. The darkness took me away from the pain, so I welcomed it. There's something about pain. However much pain I feel, however much torture they put me through, I never get used to it. You would think that, after years of waking up in pain, after being unconscious for minutes, days, sometimes even weeks, I would have gotten used to the pain, the ache in my bones, the itch of still healing cuts, the way I can barely move for weeks or months later because of healing bones, or bruised ribs. When I was little, I used to think it was normal. I used to turn up to school and wonder how the children in my class never winced away from painful touches, how they could run, jump, play, while I was stuck sitting down, in too much pain to move. I used to think they were just better than me. Maybe they were good, so their parents didn't beat them as much. Or maybe I was just weak. My dad always said he didn't hit me that hard. It only hurt because I was weak, because I let it. Over time I began to realize it wasn't normal, but I didn't realize quite how bad it was until I met Forrest, and Atlas and Dila. The way they treated each other, the way they treated me, showed me just how abnormal the whole thing with my father and brother was. They came back, again and again. They would give me 10 minutes of being awake before they would come back. They would cut me to see my blood flow, inflict pain on me just to see me twitch, just to make me scream. I tried to stay strong for my family, but everyone has a limit of the pain you can take, a limit to the lies you can be fed before you believe them, a limit to the amount of times you can tell yourself to be strong, not to give up. Things will change for the better. If you go over that limit, the person will fall apart. I hadn't just gone over my limits. I was so far over my limits I was scared to look down and see what I had become. Because it probably wasn't me. Not anymore. What do you do? What do you do when the only way to survive is to do the exact thing that could kill you? And the exact thing you don't want to do? You adapt. I'd adapted to life in the cells. I stayed quiet. I complied to their wishes. I listened to them. It made the voice in my head happy, and that's how I knew it was probably a bad idea. But when you're in the moment, a bad idea doesn't seem as bad. I thought I was doing my own thing, surviving, adapting, until Forrest came. That wasn't what I was doing. I was giving up. I just didn't want to admit it. "Hello, Tara," Simon said, standing in the doorway. He visited me daily, always greeted me politely, always being nice. I suppose I forgot what he could be like. I smiled up at him. "Hello, Simon." I didn't realize I was doing exactly what they wanted until I was geeked to escape. I suppose too long of just trying to survive did that to you. I always believed Forrest would come and save me. It wasn't a question of if, just when. But as the days stretched on, with no way to track time, it became harder and harder to believe he was coming. My biggest mistake was trusting them. I trusted them to not try to trick me. After ages of them playing fair, I forgot they were evil. They would never play fair. "Terrell," Simon said, drawing my attention back to him. "Are you okay? You seem a bit spaced out." I nodded. "I'm fine. Just a bit tired. That's all." He seemed satisfied with that answer. "I'll let you rest then." Simon walked out, giving one last look before closing the door. A few minutes later the door clicked open and Nathaniel walked in. He looked twitchy. He kept looking over his shoulder, as if he was scared of being caught. "Come on," Undoing my chains. We don't have long. As soon as they realize you're gone, they'll come looking for you. What are you doing? I questioned, rubbing my wrists where they had been confined for what felt like ages. I'm saving you. Leading me out the building, keeping to the shadows. Now run. Run. Find your mate. Never come back. So I did. I ran as fast as I could. Like a gazelle, running for its life. In a way I was. Not for my life. To my life. I ran randomly, looking for any indication of where I was. Any indication of how to get home. I thought it a miracle when I saw the school looming in front of me. I was only a few miles away from home. I ran as fast as I could. I knew exactly where I was going. I knew exactly what I was going to do when I got home. But there was one little detail I forgot. I forgot last time. When I met Aaron. I forgot that eyes can lie. Sounds can be distorted. Smell can be disguised. I forgot that they would never play fair. I forgot. My second mistake. Chapter 38, mistake number 3. Tara's POV. The house loomed in front of me. Home. Finally I was home. I ran up the steps, pushing the door open and walking in. Hello. I called out. Is anyone there? I got no answer, so I walked straight up to my room. Things had changed. They weren't quite right. The duvet was a different color, and the walls were the wrong shade. The desk had moved against a different wall, and the wardrobe was made of pine, not cedar. Those should have been the clues to tell me something wasn't right. The clues to tell me to get out and not come back. But I didn't pay attention to those. I paid attention to the fact I was home. Finally. Or at least I thought I was. At the sound of a door closing downstairs, I started walking there. A smile plastered on my face, I ran into the sitting room, only to see Forrest on the sofa, making out with a random girl. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes and I started to yell. How dare you? How could you? How dare you? Tears flowed freely down my face, and through my curtain of hair I saw Forrest stop and look over at me. But the expression I saw on his face wasn't one of guilt. It was one of absolute rage. Who on earth are you, and what are you doing in my house? Poison coating his words. I just stared at him. Who am I? Who am I? I am your mate, you cheating pig. It was his turn to stare. His face morphed from anger to confusion. My mate. This is my mate. Motioning to the girl next to him. If you don't get out this house in the next 2 minutes, I'm calling the police. All I could do was stare. My mate. Just called a random girl his mate. He'd replaced me. Was I really that replaceable to him? That worthless? Just then the door behind me opened. We heard shouting. What's going on? I nearly cried with relief when I saw Atlas and Ela standing in the doorway. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ela. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hoping they could beat some sense into Forrest. Forrest is saying, I'm not his mate. Please correct him. Desperately I begged. Please. They just looked at me. A confused look plastered on their faces. No, this is Forrest's mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They just called the random girl Laria. But I'm Laria. I begged. Why have you replaced me? I called out desperately. No, Atlas corrected. This is, and always has been, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Motioning towards the fake Aria, I sank down in the corner. My vision blurred as I tried to process what they were saying. The next thing I knew, I was being led away. Into a police car. I was thrown into a cell and I just lay on the floor. Silent tears streaming down my face. Why didn't they remember me? My wolf was silent in my mind. It had been months since I last heard from her. So soon after getting her back. She was gone again. I hugged my knees to my chest. What was going on? What was right? What was wrong? I lay there for hours, unaware of my surrounding, just thinking, who's my mate? Who was lying? Who was telling the truth? Was Forrest my mate? He said he wasn't, but I remember him. Was Simon my mate? He said he was, but I didn't remember him. I lay there, all the information, all the questions, all my doubt and fears, running round my head. Hours passed before the cell door opened up again. I had moved to sit against the far corner and I was just staring at the wall. I didn't look up until I heard the person at the door clear their throat. Come on, Terrell. I looked up to see Simon standing awkwardly in the doorway. Go away, I whispered. Why are you even here? He came closer to me and pulling me into a hug. I quickly pulled away. We tried to warn you. But I'm here now. I'm here now. I stood up and started pacing the same 3 steps again and again. Why do you care? I hissed at him. He looked down at me, looking slightly sorry. I care because you are my mate. I just sniffed. You are my mate. You'll never be my mate. He looked depressed. Forrest isn't your mate, he explained calmly. And I am. I nodded. Maybe he was right. Maybe he is my mate. Maybe he's been my mate the entire time. Regardless, I was tired. I was lonely. I was lost. Forrest wasn't my mate. So maybe he was. Simon's POV finally. She was mine. I just had to act nice for a bit longer. I had to pretend I actually cared about this pathetic girl. All I wanted was a mate. One who would do as I told. Not answer back or think for herself. And soon I would have it. Nathaniel was right. All we had to do was break down her defenses with a little magic. A little magic that made her question everything she knew. A little magic that made her see illusions. She thought her mate had forgotten about her. Moved on. Truthfully, he was looking for her. He wouldn't give up. Not unless she did first. I never thought the plan could work. No one would fall for it. Believe their loving mate had forgotten about them. Moved on. Never believed the person who hated them loved them. But Arya's different. That's why I chose her. She doesn't know the difference between love and hate. After years of pain being the norm, she just doesn't understand. She has lived with that family for long enough that she learnt the basic difference between them, which made it slightly harder to confuse her. But a few days of torture and pain soon broke her. She shattered into a million pieces. And soon she will be mine. Terra's POV. After a few more hours I came to a conclusion. It may not be right. But Simon is here and Forrest isn't. I didn't have my wolf to ask, so I only had my own opinion on the matter. Maybe my wolf would have a different opinion, but she wouldn't talk to me. So my decision was final. Simon came to take me home, away from the police cell I had been sitting in for the last few hours, lost in my own mind. This time I didn't resist. I didn't fight back. I just did as he asked. I adapted to my environment and changed for my future. My future with Simon. I gave up on what I believed in. On my future. On my mate. My third mistake. One false move on its own would be a mistake. But all 3 together spelled my destruction. Chapter 38. Tell not ask Forrest's POV. I read the message again. 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 Over and over and over. The world swirled round my head like a spinning top. Or more like a million spinning tops. But they made no sense. The whole thing made no sense. It wasn't supposed to. It was designed this way. It was designed that we never find her. Never find Arya. But I wouldn't give in. I would never give in. I still think it's literal. Ash said from beside me. That was the only suggestion he had. For days he had been saying he thought it was literal. But he never would explain why. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I have a hunch. You always say that, I said, turning to him. Why don't you explain why for once? Ash looked down at the ground before shrugging. A city in the middle of the woods. Looking round. I will. I'd heard Daria call this city a city in the woods. When I asked her why she said her dad always called it that, In a split second, I was beside him, my fangs bared in his face. Why, I hissed at him. Why is this the first time hearing of this? He looked down at the ground, baring his neck in submission. She asked me not to say anything. She begged. She looked really scared that something would happen if I told anyone. I tried to tell you. Sometimes I really wonder why he's my best friend. Any more grand revelations you wish to share with us? I yelled, not caring who could hear. He shook his head, still showing his neck in submission. Clever. I turned to walk out the room. "Ah, wait," Ash suddenly yelled. "Wait," she did say. Say something else." I stared at him. I forgot okay. I nodded, motioning for him to go on. We were talking about indoor rainforests. You know, we have one in this town. And I asked her if she ever wanted to go. She said no. Said they were man-made trees and she would rather go to the woods and hear real trees sing. I just sighed at him. Why he didn't think this was important to tell me days ago is a mystery to me. As I walked out the door, I was struck with a blast of pain, causing me to fall to the floor. Ash was by my side in instants. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. First, are you okay? Said Arya. I shook my head. I was on the ground, clawing at my chest. I knew what it was. I knew what it meant. My heart felt like it was on fire, bright as a star. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I had heard stories of this. Everyone explained it differently, but most say it feels like death. There are only ever two reasons why you would feel that way, both being the destruction of a mate bond, by death or by magic. Tara's POV adaptation. I had made my choice. I had to adapt. I knew I had to be good. I had to obey. I had to sit still. I had to look pretty. I was Simon's. I belonged to him. I knew my life wasn't perfect, but I was thankful for what I had, for the small privileges I had. I got one meal a day if I was good. I got a door in the bathroom. I got a book to read and clothes to wear. I got a glass of water a day. I have everything I need to be happy. I have everything I need to be safe. I have everything I need to be healthy. My arm only hurt because I let it. They beat me every day for my own good. It taught me resilience. It was character building. It only hurts if I let it. Pain is an emotion. My wrist jutted out at an odd angle, and it hurt. But I wasn't hurt. I know I wasn't hurt because Simon told me I wasn't. That night, as I ate my few crackers for my meal, I bit down a cough. I wasn't ill. I was healthy. Simon said so. I sat across from Simon, him eating the vegetable soup I had made during the day. I don't need any. I don't want any. It was my mate's. Just like me. I belonged to him and I would cook and clean for him because he loved me. Once I had finished my meal, I still felt hungry. I'm not actually hungry though. Simon gives me the exact amount of food I need. No more. No less. If Simon said I had all the food I needed, I had all the food I needed. I cleaned the kitchen. I cleaned the bathrooms. I washed the windows and the cars. I cooked food for Simon, for his friends, for my brother and father. My father and Simon laughed as they beat me. It's for your own good. I just lay there. They were right. Of course they were. They are always right. Every day was the same. I woke up next to Simon, although I always woke up before him to light the fire in his bedroom and cook him breakfast. I cleaned the kitchen, the bathrooms and the bedrooms. My dad came over. My brother came over. Tashuk came over. If I was good, I'd be rewarded. If I was bad, I'd be punished. I would go to sleep next to Simon, my mate. It was a good life. But one night everything changed. Simon gave me a few spoonfuls of soup for tea, to have with my few crackers, and gave me 2 glasses of water to drink, instead of 1 for dinner. I was so happy. I didn't think my day could get any better. Until, we're getting married, Simon said, looking at me, handing me a ring. The wedding is in 3 weeks. I was so shocked. We were getting married. I had never been to a wedding before. My brother appeared at the door. He saw my ring and smirked. So, when's the wedding? 3 weeks. Simon answered as Tasha and my dad came through the door. Tasha squealed. She ran to my side asking to see my ring. So, she said, grinning, how did he ask you? I laughed at that. Tasha, I said in between my laughs, he's my mate. He didn't ask. He told me. The smile fell off her face faster than waterfalls off a waterfall. But surely, know that's not right. He's my mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Smiling, I belong to him. He chooses everything. When I get married, when I get pregnant, whether I get a job or not. Everything. She frowned down at me. What happened to you? She whispered to me. This isn't you. What changed? I smiled at her, slightly sadly. Everything has to change one day. It's just the way it is. Tasha was smiling again, but this time the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I need to go. My parents need me at home. I nodded for her to go on and then walked over to Simon. Hey Tara, Simon said, throwing his arm over my shoulders, holding me close to him, holding me captive. I smiled at him, trying to wriggle out of his tight grip. He held me tighter. You're mine. Remember that. He hissed into my ear before releasing me. Now, Simon said, it's time to celebrate. Nathaniel, if you would do the honors. I hadn't spotted Nathaniel, lurking in the shadows. Nathaniel clicked. His eyes flashed. I felt a searing pain from my heart. Then everything went black. Chapter 39. The act Terra's POV. From the moment I woke up, I knew something was wrong. My heart burnt. My blood was like lava, cutting a path of fire through my veins, leaving destruction in its path. Then I remembered. He'd destroyed my bond. Time was ticking, trickling by, counting down. If I didn't get out soon, I'd die. And so would my mate, whether we shared a bond or not. I sat up, groaning at the effort. Simon had left already, probably off to find some new torture device. Good. Gives me time to plan his death. I got you there, didn't I? You thought I'd succumb to him. You thought I'd given up. You thought I was weak, was going to do what he said because of what I was, a poor little girl. Forrest taught me many things. Strength, determination, love. I had always been stubborn. That's the main reason I would never die. Every time my dad or brother tried to kill me, I would somehow, miraculously survive. I was too stubborn to die. Forrest had taught me to fight for what I believed in. I believed in my family. My real family. Not the one related to me by blood. The one by choice. And I suppose fate. Since, you know, the whole mate bond thing. But anyhow, I knew Forrest would come for me. I just had to survive. And also plot Simon's death. But that was more a personal thing. I knew Nathaniel's a witch. Although it took me a while to figure it out. I knew when I escaped I would see a trick. But I had to make them believe me. Or else I would never get out alive. And you had to believe me. Or else you wouldn't believe in me. You need to believe in me. Or else I will never be free. I had to continue on as I had started. I cooked. I did everything he wanted. I took the beatings he dished out whenever he felt like it. But inside I thought of my revenge, as my dad beat me for the 100th time, 1000th time. I imagined the way I would make him pay. I wasn't the weak girl he had beaten for all those years. I had grown. I had found strength in those around me. I had found who I was. I wasn't ever going to give up. Forrest's BOV, the deadline was fast approaching. We only had a few days left to find the place mentioned in the riddle, or she was lost forever. That was unacceptable. We would find her, and we would find her soon. Me and Sky were currently making our way to the butterfly world, or as Arya always called it, the indoor rainforest. We had talked about it before. Ash was right. I never thought about it, but he was right. We were talking about going there, but she said she didn't want to go. Said it was an indoor rainforest and if she wanted to see a load of trees, she would just step outside. I would have brought Ash as well, but he was currently on my kill list since he kept the information from me for so long. My parents were busy in a meeting with Alpha Maxim. He was still here, although he had to go back soon. I felt the empty place in my heart where our bond used to be. I had to find her before she was gone for good. The first thing I noticed as I entered the forest was how quiet it was. The trees didn't whisper in the breeze. No animals chattered. No sound at all. The second thing I noticed was the scent. The scent of rogues. The scent of Arya. Without looking round to see if Sky was following. Without looking out for danger. I followed the scent through the trees, running faster than ever before. Faster than possible. I had to find her. But I didn't find her. I followed the scent through the trees until I found a note. A note pinned to the trees. I pulled it off the tree just as Sky came running up. "Don't run off like that," she panted as she ran up to me. "What do you have there?" I stared at the paper in my hand. In a trace. Not blinking. Without answering her, I read it. "So you solved the first clue. Well done. You are one step closer to saving and stealing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But there is still lots to come, and time just keeps ticking on. Good luck." Without saying anything to Sky, I ran back to the car, rushing back home. They were right about one thing. I didn't have much time left, but we were one step closer. I will find Arya in time. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm.